Okay, so if you do get cut out or if anything happens or you just get disconnected, we will have the recording available on our YouTube as well as our socials. So you can watch it in your own time at the end. Okay, so to start, why are cities restricting STRs? One of the common reasons and things that are one of the common reasons for the short-term rentals being restricted, and what we are seeing in the headlines is that it's being blamed basically for the housing shortage and the housing affordability issues. And so communities across different cities in the US, as well as other parts of the world, are basically using short-term rentals as a scapegoat for this issue. And so in response, many local jurisdictions have started to impose strict regulations on STRs, and in some cases have even banned them altogether. And then another reason why these restrictions are popping up is due to residents feeling a sense of disruption in their communities. So they're feeling like they don't know their neighbors. They are concerned with the frequent turnover of guests within these STRs, and so they're feeling this lack of community. And another reason why STRs are being criticized is due to the fact that it can cause some nuisance. And so noise issues, litter, traffic congestion, and parking area scarcity is all acting as these nuisances that's really creating problems for residents. And so residents have started to feel that STRs are all are disrupting the community. And they're also feeling this reduction in perceived safety. So with parties, frequent turnover of guests, and also previous shooting events with STRs, these all create and contribute to the perception that STRs are not safe within neighborhoods. And so we see this trend in banning of STRs on the rise. STRs are blamed for the housing shortage, like I said, and the global affordable housing crisis has prompted public policies to protect people's right to housing. And so these locales and these municipalities are aiming to correct the situation. And so what they're doing is that they're imposing these strict regulations on STRs, like having annual license fees, having operating day limits, limiting the number of days that you can operate your STR per year, specific property specifications, and then also imposing big taxes on short-term rental bookings. And on top of this, they're also imposing permit caps. So the amount of permits that they're giving out to STR property managers and owners. And then there's also zoning restrictions, and in some extreme cases, bans. And so in response to all of this, there's been lots of studies and statistics being done, and statistics showing that STRs are not really to blame for this crisis. It is a real issue, but the short-term rental market only make up for less than 1% of all major city housing stock. And so even if these short-term rentals were to be converted into long-term housing, it wouldn't contribute to the affordable housing. These units would be expensive single-family homes. And then just to touch on the housing affordability crisis a little bit more, there was a study done by the Milken Institute, which specifically looked at housing stock in California, and the amount of short-term rentals only made up about 1%. And so what they found was that these units, even if they wanted to, they couldn't convert these into long-term housing. And so these STRs really aren't the cause of the housing unaffordability and availability issues. The real issue is the fact that there aren't enough affordable multifamily units. And so converting STRs to long-term housing really won't solve the shortage caused by millions of unbuilt units that is needed to alleviate this issue. And so just to look at this little graph here on the right, you can see at the top, California, this is what I'm referencing with the total units. You'll see in the blue, that's all the STRs. And if you look at Lake Tahoe and Big Bear, and which is the more touristy parts, you will see that there is a rise in the amount of short-term rentals. But again, these are very expensive areas, and these houses really will not be affordable units if they were converted into long-term housing. And then just looking at an analysis of the impact of STRs in Dallas. So there was a study done in Dallas, which looked at the amount of STRs that are made up out of the total housing stock as well. And here you can see that only less than half of a percent of Dallas's total housing stock actually make up of STRs. And given this very minuscule amount of short-term rentals, it is unlikely that short-term rentals significantly affect the availability of affordable housing in the city. And during the study, they also looked at the amount of phone calls and noise complaints that came through for short-term rentals. And they found that these were very isolated negative experiences. And while these were very real experiences for residents living next to these problematic STRs, these incidents were exceptions and definitely weren't the norm. And so it's important to acknowledge that, these experiences can be very annoying when you are living next to a problematic short-term rental, but it definitely doesn't reflect the overall trend. And I would like to just say that any potential issues that STRs deal with can be actively monitored and addressed to ensure that it doesn't affect the broader community. But I will talk more about that in detail in the coming slides. So I just want to talk about some positive impacts of short-term rentals, not just the negative. So short-term rentals are more sustainable than hotels. They use less energy and resources, they produce less waste, and they encourage social connections amongst guests, which is very important, especially for the travelers that like to immerse themselves in the local communities and the new places that they're visiting. And so short-term rentals are vital to tourism because they offer more accommodation options, and they also make travel more affordable, accessible, and enjoyable. And as a result, they also bring tourism to areas that may not often receive tourists. And in terms of affecting local government, they also provide a significant source of tax revenue. And then with short-term rentals, they also provide property owners with the ability to have an extra income, on their second property or primary property. They're able to earn an extra income, helping them afford usually the high cost of living if they're in a very touristy part of the city. And then guests staying at STRs tend to boost local economies. So if you stay in an STR, usually it has a kitchen, it doesn't have catering. So this encourages guests to shop at local grocery stores or visit local restaurants and recreational spots and tourist attractions. And as a result, it does help small business owners and creates more jobs for locals. Okay, so here are some popular destinations that have restrictions or bans. So the first is Memphis, Tennessee. Owners will have to have someone that is on call and can respond to any noise violations. And then they also have to have at least $1 million of insurance coverage. So this is not the only city that needs this, but uh, in terms of the insurance coverage, but I did think it was important to mention. And then Charleston, South Carolina, the host must live on the grounds, and then there's also a limit on the amount of guests in that property. In Jersey City, hosts are restricted to only renting out portions of their homes, and they must be present during the guest stay. And then New York City, it's very difficult to have a Airbnb in New York City. So basically, you're not able to rent out an entire apartment, and the owner must be present, and there can be no more than 2 guests at a time in your New York City Airbnb. And then Miami Beach, Florida, the city prohibits rentals of 6 months or less, and this applies to most residential neighborhoods. Barcelona requires Airbnbs to get licensed, so you must have an STR license, but no new permits were issued in recent years. And at the moment, they have started the process on banning short-term rentals altogether in Barcelona in the next coming years. And then lastly, we have Amsterdam, which has a limit on the amount of days that you can have a short-term rental. So there is currently a 30-day limit of the year, and the city does collect quite a hefty tax on all bookings. Okay, and then what we are seeing become more popular in different cities around the US especially is an increasing focus on noise ordinances and monitoring requirements. So more and more cities are requiring that short-term rentals have a noise detector within their property. So I'm going to just touch on all of these cities that's listed here. So first is Fort Lauderdale in Florida. Each vacation rental must have a noise detector that sends a message to the owner when noise exceeds a certain threshold. The data must be saved for 180 days and then also be able to be downloaded and presented to the city upon request. And then we have Hollywood, Florida. So vacation rentals must have a noise detector, which is able to obviously track noise. And then you must also have a notice informing guests that noise levels must comply with city regulations. In New Orleans, Louisiana, this only applies to commercial STR license holders, but they must have a noise abatement plan, which includes a noise monitoring device. So the noise abatement plan is your plan on how you're going to deal with noise in your short-term rental. And then with St. Charles, Missouri, each short-term rental must have a noise monitoring device that notifies the host of noise going above a certain threshold, and then inspectors will be looking for this device during the annual safety inspection. And then lastly, we have San Bernardino, California, and hosts must upload a receipt of the approved noise monitoring device, a screenshot of the dashboard, and a photo of the installed system at the property. Okay. So with this trend happening, it can feel a bit uncertain, like, it can be a bit scary that there's this whole new device that you need to get. But it isn't necessarily a negative thing. It can be a positive thing. It can help hosts and improve cities and neighborhoods in many different ways. So the first is that noise monitors help to track noise levels and ensure that guests adhere to the rules. It would also protect hosts from blame. So a lot of the times in these neighborhoods, short-term rentals get blamed for the noise that's happening when this is just a false accusation. And noise monitoring provides a fair assessment because you have the reports, you have the data to prove that there isn't noise coming from your property. And then with neighbors complaining, calling the police, complaining to the city, and having the police come out and assess the situation, noise monitoring helps reduce the need for city resources to address these complaints. So it allows for the city to better allocate these resources somewhere else. And then as a result, with noise monitoring, you have fewer complaints from your neighbors, and you're able to have better relationships with your neighbors. And lastly, noise monitoring helps you to pinpoint the source of the noise issues, ensuring that only responsible guests are held accountable. So if there is noise in a specific unit, you're able to tell that with the device because it'll let you know the specific unit that the guest is staying in, and the violation summary. Okay, and then moving on, I do want to give you a little bit of an overview of Alertify, because obviously we have these amazing noise monitors, but just to tell you a little bit about us, we were founded in 2021 by an STR parent company. And how this came about is that our co-owners, co-founders, saw that they were having a lot of common issues like parties, noise, smoking, and they decided to look at the market and see if they could find a solution to address all of these problems. And they couldn't find anything. So they decided to start their own company. And today we have Alertify. And our mission has always been to empower property managers with privacy-safe technology, and to also help property managers efficiently manage noise disruptions, indoor smoke, and unruly guests. So I do want to give you a little overview of Fort Lauderdale's very specific noise ordinance for the devices. So they state that noise should not surpass 65 decibels during the day. So during 7 a.m. to 10 p.m., it needs to be within that range. And then at night, it needs to be 55 decibels. And then violations may result in fines ranging from $100 for the first offense up to $1,000 for repeated offenses within a 6-month period. And then just to give you an overview of New Orleans's noise ordinance. So this, again, like I mentioned, this is only for commercial STR owners that are required to install a noise monitoring device that tracks noise levels in real time and sends alerts to property managers like text message or an email if the noise exceeds acceptable thresholds. And then commercial STR operators must also develop and submit a noise abatement plan to the city. So this is usually done when you're applying for your license, but this will be submitted. And then violations of the noise ordinance can result in substantial fines of up to $1,000. And so I'm just going to touch on how Alertify keeps you compliant, but I will go into more detail on this. So Alertify has live noise decibel monitoring. It has the ability to send you an instant notification when a noise threshold is reached, it also has downloadable after incident reports. You have access to all of the historical noise data. And then also, if you have a unit that's in a non-smoking building, it also has indoor smoking monitoring. So Alertify has actually designed its devices to meet these STR regulations. And the way that it's done that is that we have the real-time noise monitoring. So it monitors specifically for decibel levels, and it continuously monitors throughout the day. And then you're also able to set customizable thresholds for specific periods of the day. So, for example, in Fort Lauderdale, if you need to have the device monitor for 65 decibels from 7 a.m. in the morning to 10 p.m. at night, you can have that as a setting. And then during the evening, 10 p.m. to 7 a.m., you can set it so that it monitors and is more sensitive. So you can set it so that it monitors 55 decibels. And then you will obviously receive an instant alert via SMS or an email when noise limits are reached. And it will generate a detailed after incident report. So these reports will detail the incident. It will tell you how long the incident lasted for, the responsible guests, their contact information, check-in and check-out dates. And then it will also let you know if it is a noise or smoking violation that took place. And then you'll also have access to historical data for over 180 days that can be submitted to the city if asked. And then you have smoke detection. So we also do live monitoring of smoke from cigarettes and marijuana. So just touching on some more features of Alertify. Obviously, I've mentioned noise and smoking a lot, but we do a lot of other things that may be of interest, like occupancy monitoring. We also monitor for things like air quality, temperature, humidity, mold risk. And I did mention the custom noise thresholds to comply with quiet hours. And then a little bit about the device itself. Um, it is a plug-in device, so it's always connected to power. And so it's you don't have to charge it, it's constantly plugged in, and you just set it and you forget it, and it's a 5-minute setup. But we have recently released our 30-second setup, which is when you order a device, you can opt in on our website at checkout. And what this means is that we will contact you for your Wi-Fi information, and then we'll create your own dashboard. We'll set up your device so that when we do send you your device to you, it's as simple as plugging it in and it'll instantly connect to your Wi-Fi. And then there's a question that comes up a lot, which is, what if someone unplugs my device? So the device does have a backup battery, which will last 4 to 5 hours. So if you do have any power outage or someone unplugs the device, it will continue to monitor for a few hours, and then it will also send you a notification to let you know that it is running on a backup battery. And then it's available in EU, UK, and US plug types. And on the dashboard, Welcome Link is free for all users. Welcome Link is our guest verification platform, which I will talk about in more detail now. So, Welcome Link. So this is a pre-arrival behavioral screening platform. So it's available on the dashboard, and you can set it up where it will send an automated message to guests with a screening link. So when they click on the screening link, you're able to do behavioral screening before arrival. You're able to ask custom questions. You can collect digital signatures on guest agreements. You can have them agree to house rules, collect IDs and selfies, upsell add-on services if you have any, which will help you to increase revenue. And then you can also run a payment validation on guest credit cards. So this can help you avoid any fraudulent credit card usage. And in certain states, it is mandatory to collect IDs. So Welcome Link, because it is an automated way of verifying guests, you can also use this to streamline the process of collecting their ID. So once your guest is all verified and they've gone through Welcome Link, Alertify will do the rest when they check into the property. So the Alertify will monitor for everything that I've mentioned: noise, smoke, occupancy issues. And then we do have a new feature that will be releasing soon, which is gunshot detection, which will be a nice added security feature. And then, like I've mentioned, hosts will receive instant alerts when a violation is picked up, but we also have a feature called guest alerts. And guest alerts is an automated messaging system which will send an alert straight to your guest when a violation is picked up, letting them know that they are being noisy and, to please quiet down. And this is proven to be 90% effective on the first alert. But if in the case that they don't listen after this message and they don't quiet down, you will be notified that something is happening, something is escalating, and there's something happening in the property. And then again with this device, it is fully compliant with Airbnb's new camera and noise monitor policy. So Airbnb recently came out with a camera and noise monitor policy, which states that you need to make all your guests aware that there is a monitoring device within the property. This device does not have any voice recording ability. It also does not have any cameras. So it is fully guest privacy compliant. Okay, and then, like I mentioned, with these after incident reports, they're generated after a violation has taken place. And they are all available on Alertify's dashboard, and you can easily download them as a PDF. And you will have access to this data for over 180 days. And then with this data, you can use this as solid evidence, linking a guest to a violation. So with Airbnb, if you have air cover or if you have short-term rental insurance, if a violation like a party happened, for example, and there was lots of noise, lots of damage, and you would like to submit evidence, it can be very tricky to only submit images. So something like a noise and a smoking report will really show that something happened in this property. These are the levels of smoke. This is the smoke graph. This is the guest information, when the violation took place and how long it lasted. So all of that can be submitted to really ease the claim process. And then with these reports, what you can also do is to implement a deposit and a fining system. So if you have Welcome Link and you see that this is a high-risk guest, this guest is young, they're only staying for one night, you can have them pay a deposit, and when there's like a smoking event or any sort of event happening that causes damage, you can withhold the deposit, which will help to relieve you from exorbitant cleaning fees and even structural damage, and then also possibly helping to increase revenue. So that was our solution, and we like to call it an end-to-end solution. And this is just a summary of what I just spoke about now. So just to give you an overview, guests book on Airbnb or booking.com, and then welcome link will generate a link to the guest where they can click on that link, they can do an ID verification, they can upload their ID and take a selfie, they can agree to the guest agreement, the house rules, a payment validation, and then verified guests check into the property where Alertify will monitor for any violations. And then when a violation is picked up, automated messages get sent to the guest, and then a comprehensive incident report is available for dispute resolution. So if you were wondering about the cost of this solution, it is $180 per year. So it is a subscription-based model, and it includes the device hardware and software all in this price. So there isn't extra fees or extra costs. And like I mentioned, you have your noise, smoke, and occupancy monitoring. You are able to monitor temperature, air quality, humidity, mold risk. You have access to all after incident reports, custom notifications, custom thresholds and instant notifications. And you also have, we will give you the 30-second setup free of charge, and it also includes a backup battery. So all orders can be placed on our website, alertify.io. So I do want to say thank you so much for joining today's webinar. I do see that we have some questions already, so we'll be answering these now. But we have a promo code called Alertify Friends 15. So if you did want to order a device on our website, you can get a discount. And then if you are running a larger portfolio of units, you can also sign up for a more personalized demo on our website. Okay, so someone asked, can the devices integrate with Google Home? There could be a way that we could do that. I will have to follow up. Another person asked, how does the installation process work? And can you change the threshold over weekends? Okay, cool. So how does the installation process work? So if you decide that you want to just set the device up by yourself, you can do so. So you plug it in, you are able to connect to the device, and then you give it information like Wi-Fi details, your dashboard details. It will then recognize that information and it'll connect to your Wi-Fi and it'll connect to your dashboard. So that's kind of like how the installation process works. And then can you change the noise threshold over the weekends? There is a way to do that, yes. You can set up certain thresholds and then have them for certain periods of time. Okay, I think that is all the questions for now. But if you do have any more questions, feel free to reach out to us on our website. And thank you so much again for joining.